All right. So, Derek, you and I have known each other for quite a few years now. And it's been so fun getting to know your business. And I love the work that you're doing. So, I'm excited to talk about it today. I was wondering if we could start by just kind of talking about some of the history of how you got to be doing what you are doing today, your story and your background a little bit.
Yeah, love to share that. Thank you. Well, I never saw sleep coaching being an avenue for me. I was an insomniac for all of my life, basically, but for a 15-year period, I was really stuck in a cycle, and it was beginning to affect my life. And I had taken on a bartending job just so that I could adjust to the timing of insomnia, kind of living that inverse day. And got to a point where I wasn't really pursuing anything. By nature, I'm a creative person. I like having different projects going on and experimenting with things. And I was doing music for a while, and that was fulfilling that need. And so I was just at a point where I was kind of riding on a stationary bike. And this is when I made the career change into health coaching. I took a health coaching certification program. And during that certification program, I started sleeping better. I started making little simple changes that I hadn't thought of when I was stuck in that cycle. And it shifted my sleep just enough for me to realize that much of what I was going through was as much a mental cycle as it was a physical cycle. And then I started playing with the psychological pieces, the emotional pieces of sleep. And right away, before I even worked with my first client, period, when I was, coming out of the program, I knew that sleep was going to be my focus. And so I've always, since the beginning, I didn't have to contemplate what kind of niche I was going to go into. And so I've been doing this for 8 years now. And yeah, I really didn't see any of this coming, or never would I have guessed that I would go this far down the rabbit hole with sleep, and really didn't realize that the rabbit hole for sleep was infinite.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, such an important topic. And can you tell me a little bit about your transition, what it was like to go from a life of not really sleeping and having this different rhythm to a life that had healthier sleep? And I imagine this is what you see for your clients also. What is that like?
You go from being a pessimist to not even an optimist right away, but uh, life just appears differently, and reality looks a little bit different. Life seems a little bit more fair when you're sleeping. That's what it was like for me. I was able to see all of the stories, all the ways that I just was really protecting myself and protecting the schedule that I had created, even though it wasn't ideal. And even though I wasn't sleeping a lot, I had set up like an encampment for my sleep pattern and my way of life. And I was just kind of like a victim. And so when I started sleeping, and the big thing for me, like the biggest surge of life that came into me, was the first time that I actually helped a client sleep better. And that to me was the ultimate transition.
Yeah.
And the even the way I noticed this huge impact that took place when people would show up to a call and then that very night sleep better,
Yeah.
just because of our conversation, and not because of anything I told them to do, but just because of how they showed up with this hope and belief in somebody else that was going through what they're going through. And just that invitation to kind of pause and to consider that much of the change that they're trying to make is a mindset and alignment one. That contemplation created so much change. And that right there, that little switch is is really symbolic of what I went through that is priceless.
Oh man, yeah, that's something you wouldn't expect. It's hardly even tangible, but making such a huge difference in a person's life. Oh, that's lovely. So you started out working just one-on-one with people. You've kind of evolved in what your business is. You still do the coaching, you have a podcast. Tell me a little bit about, I know we're going to talk about some exciting new offerings today, but tell me a little bit about what your business is today, how it's evolved in these 8 years.
Yeah, it's changed a little and a lot. The way I entered into sleep coaching was what I call like a very masculine approach. Like if you came to me and be like, hey Jess, you can sleep. I believe in you. I know you can sleep. And um, we're going to celebrate all your little victories and let these add up. And it was very quantitative. And I was a big cheerleader for people, and it was helpful. It worked. And what has evolved is each year that I've been coaching, I've taken a step back to see sleep a little bit more holistically and a little bit more from a bird's eye view, more comprehensively. It's because it's more than holistic. And this is where the different aspects is like I started going through different trainings, like such as NLP, and then getting curious about spirituality, and even going down the rabbit holes of quantum physics in learning how sleep really works on a subatomic level, and exploring all these different facets of life, and then taking that big enough step back to see how they all communicate with each other. And
Yeah.
this is what the art of falling asleep has turned into, is just really taking a step back so that we're not trying to kind of calculate and outsmart this resistance of sleep by trying to figure out what we need to take more of, or what we need to do more of, or do better, and buy and really just kind of step back and see how we're fitting in to everything that has taken place around us, and how to make that change from within. And so this is what the art of falling asleep now is. Just it's having this reverence for sleep as the most comprehensive experience of life, and then now looking at insomnia as an opportunity to really connect to yourself as a means to going to sleep, not to receive sleep so that you can go back into the rest of your life and perform at a higher level, but actually for the practice of connecting to yourself and seeing sleep as the purpose of life, right? This beautiful moment,
Mm.
because otherwise we're just kind of in a Groundhog Day experience, right? And so this is what sleep has become for me, is just a true spiritual practice. That's it.
That's beautiful. And I think that in my mind is what sets you apart from other people in this space, this relationship with sleep and this approach. I think even from the beginning, coming to your website, seeing the art of falling asleep instead of seeing you can sleep 10 steps to success, like having just the even in the title right there and what you call your business, the art of falling asleep is such a it has beauty, it has depth, it suggests this whole world that and this relationship that you're talking about, where you're experiencing sleep in a different type of way. So I love that title and that whole approach.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that I forget where I read this originally, but it was like when you look at the polarity of science, it's art, and vice versa. And so one of the things that really got me curious about the spiritual and artistic aspects of sleep was the biological, scientific aspects of sleep, and really letting one inform the other, and how if you really open up let's just say the brain to observe what's taking place with the formation of adenosine, the collection of adenosine, how that informs the hypothalamus to then turn the command for sleep on, and then release melatonin from the pineal gland. If you really just observe that, and then you got an artist to interpret that, right? And describe that in music and art and feeling, you realize that sleep is just this beautiful orchestration, and there's so many ways in, and this can lead you in so many directions. And then when you've had enough of one, then you can go to the other, and this is how you start to leapfrog and really start to I called sleep an infinite experience, but you just see like I believe we're at a place for adaptation, where because of how, let's just call it what it is, crazy the world is right now, and at the same time environmentally, with light and terrible food and toxins, in a way there's never been a tougher time to sleep, biologically as well as emotionally, psychologically. And I don't think life is unfair that way. We're just in a position to bounce back and forth between the art and the science in order to adapt and find this new way of surrendering and experiencing sleep at a level that has never been experienced before, not even by our ancestors.
Wow, that's really great. So you've mentioned a couple of times about how this is such an expansive world that people can get into. There's a lot here, as in what you've just described. I think that in order to kind of guide people through this process, you've found what works to help take their hand and walk them through into that expansiveness. So you have kind of a 5-step method, right, of guiding a person into this process. Can you tell me a little bit about that 5-step method?
Yes. Yeah. The 5-step method, the 5 steps are 5 concepts. And I love how all of this came about, because just being honest, the steps came to me. I don't know what I call them a download. It was just a flash. I was taking a bath one day, and then on the tub tiles, these 5 names appeared. It was decide. First, it was decide, balance, release, become, and then be present. And then a few years later, I realized that decide or balance and release needed to be reversed. Okay, that's not that important, but these names appeared to me, and I knew immediately what was happening there. I wasn't going into the tub trying to figure anything out. I was just kind of daydreaming, and these names appeared, and I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to decode them. And in the decoding process, with decision, I had to figure out, like, what does it really mean to decide to sleep? And at an entry level, deciding to sleep is probably what you might be thinking, which is just kind of saying yes to sleep, and as a means of that, saying no to everything else, making firm decisions, putting your phone on airplane mode, so on and so forth. And that's sort of part of that masculine approach. But what that has evolved into is setting the foundation for everything that anybody has ever tried to do in order to sleep better, but struggled to do. The surrendering, letting go, relaxing, and finding balance and the presence, all of these strategies that are pieces of common advice, and the things that make us kind of go into sleep with this like a theme of an adventure every night. Like, oh, what am I going to do tonight to kind of get me over the edge? I'm going to listen to something. I'm going to take something. Am I going to try some kind of technique? And so I was able to take a step back and really think about what deciding means and how this involves the subconscious mind. And so the ritual for sleep begins by making a decision to sleep, but then creating alignment with the mind, with the body, with the subconscious mind, with the inner child, even. And this means taking some time to process the day, complete the experience of the day on an energetic level, and then develop communication with the subconscious mind, develop an understanding of how you feel consciously and how you feel subconsciously, where there is difference there, how you can become aligned, get on the same page, what kind of context needs to be exchanged between these two different minds.
Mhm.
And then this turns into a feeling of grounding, which is a metric that can be measured in the body. It just feels like a surge of electricity. This now changes the landscape for the nighttime ritual, and everything that you've ever tried to do before that maybe felt a little confusing or hard is different. And now if you're going to release, the thing that you're releasing is completely different than what conceptually you may have been trying to release before then. And you don't even need to know what it is that you are releasing. This is the power of a decision, is that once you've decided, it's sort of like it's shaking up the cage and then opening it and then letting whatever doesn't belong there fall out.
Yeah.
And so it creates making a decision to sleep creates a very passive experience of sleep from there forward, where you can release and you're unconsciously releasing, you're consciously releasing, and then balance is just an enjoyable process that creates this. It's a feeling of solitude that can only be experienced in the moment between the frequency of the day and the frequency of sleep, where you're not quite ready to sleep yet, and you're able to understand what it's like to have all your needs met and really have distance from your emotions and experience the true self. And in the 5-step method, the one of the things about it, the beauty of it, I think, for the insomniac that has emotional resistance to sleep, is that the first 3 steps take place outside of the bed.
Mm.
And so this gives somebody the space to actually enjoy the ritual for what it is. And we're not making it about trying to fall asleep. And so before they even get into bed, they arrive to this frequency where there's not necessarily a desire to go to sleep, but there's also not a desire to return to any part of your daytime life,
Yeah.
right? So you're getting into bed, and this is where the become and be present aspects enter in, where there's just a little bit of freedom to enter into the bed with no expectation of sleep, but really just an opportunity to connect with yourself and have sleep come and take you when it's ready, rather than you trying to impose your will on sleep.
That's great. Very cool. So you've been working through this 5-step methods with your coaching for a while now, and you're taking it into a next level, offering with an in-person retreat now. When you told me about doing this retreat, you said a place for people to come learn how to surrender. And I loved that so much. So tell me a little bit about the retreat experience that you're envisioning and setting up for people, and what that's going to be like.
Yeah, this is it's a big shift, and the ideally when the real funny thing about sleep coaching, which takes place over the phone or over Zoom, is that it takes place long distance, and then diurnally it's out of concept with the thing that you're actually doing, right? So if I'm coaching you with your business, I mean, we could actually work on your business in real time. It would be the other way around in this situation, but
Yeah.
but with sleep, just the premise of online coaching can tend to make it a very intellectual process, and you could return to your tendencies. And so one thing that I look forward to is going through a ritual with people here in person, right? And actually being able to say goodnight and see you in the morning. And then they can actually go to their quarters, to their little casitas, and have just a real integrated experience of what we've done that they don't have to think about because they've already gone through the ritual. So that's one aspect that, is just, it's really special to be able to do that. But then the other thing, with my own personal evolution, is finding that space in between, which is, let's say, me coaching you, and then non-verbally, which is me holding the space for you and giving you permission to actually surrender and decide and to make that commitment, and then to have somebody facilitate. It's my favorite word for sleep, because I help facilitate, but you also facilitate for yourself and facilitate energy going through you. And this is where surrender comes in, because surrender has all these different levels. There's surrendering to the day, there's surrendering to your tendencies, and then there's actually surrendering to consciousness, right? When you're conscious and you go unconscious, you're surrendering your consciousness back to your creator. And that's what, it's really simple. That's what sleep is. And in order to do that, energy has to be moving through you, because that energy is going to continue going through you while you're sleeping, while consciousness is your conscious mind has gone back into the larger stream of consciousness. And so there is no better way to help somebody create or to facilitate energy moving through them than in person, than, with these 5 steps. So the 5 steps are going to take on a more embodied nature, where I can, there's going to be a little bit of a physical nature to it with the other guests, where there's connection, there's probably going to be hugging and, crying, and there's just a space that's created, to really maximize the potential for energy to move through somebody. But when, we've all felt that the well, maybe not necessarily all of us, but the power of a hug, the power of energy of another person, the power of opening the field of your heart to more than one person. Sometimes at conferences, you see this take place, and miracles will happen, like places like Joe Dispenza retreats, conferences. You hear about people, in wheelchairs, like getting up and walking for the first time. And so this is that aspect of sleep and connection that I'm really looking forward to, is really holding space for miracles.
Yeah. Yeah. That much dedicated space to it. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to see a coach, I'm committing to my appointments, but to go take yourself out of the rest of your world that kind of pulls you in different directions and say, I'm going to focus on this. I'm here to fully surrender, and I have this community to do it with, and this guide, that is really powerful. That's
Yeah.
great.
I at the beginning, I when I first had the vision of a sleep retreat, it kind of took on the personality of what I'm seeing out there currently for other sleep retreats, which is fine, which is great, but it's like a space. It's a come reset your clock, and then, you know, um, there are these workshops and activities, and you're kind of learning how to sleep. And this is kind of different, yeah, some people just don't even have space to be able to do that. Like, I know some people are going to want to come just because it's like there's no distractions, right? But really, this is a place, a space for somebody to come and really get intimate with themselves, with a mechanism for sleep,
Mhm.
which there are many facets to a mechanism, but mainly the subconscious mind, alignment with the heart and the brain, and really understand what it means to surrender, which is not something I can tell you how to do, but for that person.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's something that you can't really jump into unless you have like the ultimate space, going into safe mode, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I remember talking to you about um, dreams moving in this direction a long time ago, and it's very exciting to see it all coming together. I'm just, yeah, really excited for you to be able to have this offering and this experience. I am going to provide the link for anyone who wants to sign up that's watched this interview. But if people are curious to just get to know you a little bit more and see if it feels like a right fit for them, I'll also include a link to your podcast so that they can get to know you there. And I know that's a great resource. And then is booking an insight call kind of the best direction there if they're curious about learning more?
Yeah, the retreats they're set up right now for 3 guests, so me and 3 other people. So it's not something that you just see online and then book and then you come. Like, uh, every guest will be booked through an insight call just to make sure that this is the right next step for them where they are. And yeah, it's an intimate experience, and I want to kind of get a grasp of where somebody is on their journey before they come. So that's a good thing, and they can ask any questions, that they want. It's going to be a unique experience. I mean, I live off the beaten path. I've got my dogs, my girls. That I think I'm really excited. I mean, I've it's been a long time coming. I feel like I'm I have I'm so blessed to be entering into my element. Like, it's combining all the things that I love to do, that I feel like I'm here to do. And for some people it's just going to be the perfect experience, and for others it may not be for them. The casitas, they don't have, the retreats are going to be scheduled in the fall and the spring when the weather is cooler at night. I mean, but there's no electricity in there. It's I have an off-grid lifestyle, right? So this isn't the place that you're going to come and get a 2-hour massage and a 5-course dinner.
Mhm.
Overlooking, overlooking the Pacific Ocean or something like that.
Yeah,
It's peaceful. It's very quiet. It's a beautiful environment. But it's we're here for this personal growth and, like I said, surrender. So yeah, a phone call, a phone or a Zoom
perfect.
will be a perfect introduction for that.
That's beautiful. I'll include the link to book an insight call with you and be able to get to know you more, and the link to your podcast so that they can get those resources in the meantime and learn more about you. But thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Very excited for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for
Right.
this.
Thanks, Derek.